Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we're fine.
Okay. Jayo Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashodanandana Jajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Ayo Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Gurudeva 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 Jaya Gurudeva Nitai Gura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gura Hari Bol 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 Harinam Sankirtan Yajna Ki
Jai.
So, Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
So, I'd like to continue. Skipped a week, but the theme is still surrendering to Lord Krishna. Because that's what we have to do. And we're at different stages in the surrendering process, if you remember. Some of us are at the very beginning of surrendering. We are just trying to make sense of, maybe I should take up spiritual life. Maybe there is some value in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and all the process. Others have already started and they're well down the road. But wherever we are, unless we are absolutely pure devotees, what is required is further surrender and accepting our spiritual identity, accepting the supremacy of the Lord. So we all have some value and some decision making and some further commitment for us to do. And I'm speaking about myself as well. I'm not out of the equation. As we go on, we have to challenge ourselves. How can I? And that surrendering process for the devotees who are quite advanced is how deeper they can go into their sadhana. You know, what ashram are they in? How are they managing? Are they able to fulfill all the requirements of that ashram in that way? Are they able to actually, you know, just do all the things in a deeper way? My chanting, my reading, my aspects of my sadhana. So this surrendering process is for everyone, regardless what level we're at. Just what we are, how we go about it is slightly different. So in continuing, the last thing that we were hearing about, and before I'm going to say the Pranam Prize in just a moment, just to catch the page. And we were talking about this process of how important Srila Prabhupada was quoting and giving some nice references. So I'll pick up from there when we start. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jeva Narotamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirahe. Nastapreshu Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavate Uttama-shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtake. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya. Chakshuan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantika. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuttapara Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Sarvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate He Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavanishpare Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Panamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vahevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So again, my pranams to everyone. So we talked about devotional service, and then because the Lord is the Lord and because the acharyas are pure representatives of the Lord, they can give us shortcuts. They can give us the whole philosophy in a nutshell. So whilst the 9 process of devotional service was being outlined, but here I think we read this verse already, that whilst, you know, Shravanam, Kirtanam, you know, and all those 9 processes are very nice, but Lord Chaitanya was actually giving everything in a condensed way. And he was saying the chanting of the holy name it's really the crucial part of the devotional process. So I think we actually did this. I'll read it again anyway. It says from Chaitanya Chaitamrita Madhya Lila, and in the purport. So as for being freed from all sinful reactions, chanting the holy name of Krishna, even once One must chant the holy name without committing any offenses. The chanting of the name is sufficient to redeem the living entity from all sinful reactions. Now I wonder, is there such a thing as a human being, especially in Kali Yuga, who is not sinful? Is it such a reality? It doesn't exist. We are all. It's all a matter of degree. So some person, we like to point out as well, so and so is such a demon. Look at their sinful activity. But it's all relative. They may be doing more public sinful activities. I'm doing mine in private. I'm doing them in a little locality just within my family and community. They're doing theirs on a big world scale. But everyone in Kali Yuga is doing sinful activity. And here it has been said that the chanting of the holy name, it is so powerful that it's able to actually neutralize and finish all sinful activity. Such a person who chants the holy name of a Lord offenselessly is very important and is worshipable. Indeed, the 9 devotional processes beginning with Shravanam and Kirtanam can be attained at once if one simply chants the holy name. I'm emphasizing this point because it's specifically the method for making progress in Kali Yuga. We may prefer very nice yagya. A yagya always has a nice feel. I remember when our Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Krishnanda Swami Maharaj, in the UK, he was the first person that we know anyway that performed Bhagavad Gita Mahayagya. And when he did it, it was such a beautiful atmosphere, and it took a long time because we read the whole Bhagavad Gita. Every shloka Bhagavad Gita was read, and then, Ahuti was put into the Havan Kund. But it was such a beautiful atmosphere, and we had nice marquee and everything. It felt very nice, but that is not the prescribed method for making spiritual progress in Kali Yuga. No, it's not that. It's actually chanting the holy name. So we have to actually take note of how the Lord is very specifically, but very mercifully giving us the method that with least effort, with least disturbance, to ourselves, we can get the maximum benefit out of it. But we must do it offenselessly, okay? And then in Harinam Chintamani by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he gives us, it's such a wonderful thing. And part of my surrendering process is that ever since I've come to ISKCON, I've always been attracted to the books of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And apart from Harinam Chintamani, there's so many other books that they're on my shelf or they're out there to be gained. And I haven't got them yet, and I haven't made a deep study of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But his life is extraordinary and exemplary, especially for those who are in Grihastha life. Because here was a person who was a magistrate, but he was also a family man with a large family, but yet he was a Pakka devotee. You cannot find any aspect about his life that wasn't devotional. So we have to just think about, what we can do further to advance ourselves in whatever ashram we're in. And if we're in Grihastha ashram, we make the biggest excuse we always make. My work is so busy, my family life is so busy, so many commitments. It's not that those commitments aren't there, but we can still practice devotional life to a very nice standard if we surrender more. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he brought Harinam Chintamani to light, and is very much appreciated by the Vaishnava community. And within that, Lord Chaitanya was extraordinary because he got different devotees to glorify and to reveal different aspects of spiritual life. So Haridas Thakur was one of the extraordinary devotees and very sweet devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But his background, and it's also part of the Lord's Leela, his background is that he was born into a Mohammedan family, Muslim family, but still he became perfect Vaishnava. So Haridas Thakur is speaking about the glories of Harinam. He speaks about the glories of the holy name on the request of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I'm not going to go into that. The book is there. Please read it. But there's a few things to be said. And I'd like those things, to be shared with us. So Haridas Thakur is speaking, and somewhat read from the book because I had problems with PowerPoint. I couldn't actually put everything on slides. But Haridas Thakur is saying the spiritual identity of the holy name. Lord Krishna's name is like an eternal and transcendental touchstone. And then he described what a touchstone is. A touchstone can grant all desirable objects. It can give you wealth. It can give sense pleasure and liberation. That's to a materialistic person. But the same touchstone of the holy name, it can give to the surrendered devotee, that touchstone, it offers pure love of Krishna. But because we're in this conditioned state, we understand a little bit, just a little bit about what that love of Krishna is. Because that love of Krishna, it is the treasure, it's everything, but we don't see it at the moment like that. We think there's something more to be had. But there's nothing more to be had than love of Krishna. I think, sometimes when I think about it, and don't forget, as I'm speaking these words and giving this class, I also see myself. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada used to say, well, yes, let me hear Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. And devotees are thinking, Prabhupada, you're translating, you know it, you know all the shlokas. But still, our Guru Maharaj also used to like to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana, because they're learning from it as well. So whilst I'm giving this class, I'm also learning from the process. Because surrendering to the Lord is everything. Sometimes we see evidence of what this surrendering process is like when we're fully surrendered. And one of the best examples that I can think of is when we see a child, especially a young child. And the young child, boy or girl, it doesn't matter. But when you see them, and they may be somewhat separated from their parents, and then they go back into the company of their parents, they're fully satisfied. They're fully comfortable. They're joyful. So that love of Krishna, attaining pure love of Krishna, that is us like that children, because we are in fact children. That's what it feels like, and that's what it will feel like. And for the devotee who's on the path of devotional service, that's exactly what they experience. I'm most comfortable when I'm in the association of Lord Krishna, to whatever degree I'm able to have that association. So that pure love of Krishna is something very significant, and we should aspire for it in every way we can. Srila Prabhupada goes on. I was in the previous classes, I know there's a gap, but there's a purport. This verse is there, and then the purport is what I'd like to concentrate on. But I wanted to emphasize that the aspect of devotional service is so many, and we may be attracted to one or the other, but the thing to be attracted to more than anything else is the chanting of the holy name. So if you have not already started, then you should definitely start chanting. And if you are already chanting, then please try to go deeper into that process. Then in Srila Prabhupada is quoting this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 2:3:1. Sri Sukha Uvacha Evam Eta Nigaditam Pritstavan Yad Bhavanma Ninam Yan Mriya Yamananam Manushyeshu Manishanam. And the translation is, Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, as you have inquired from me as to the duty of an intelligent man who is on the threshold of death, so I shall answer you. Srila Prabhupada then gives some very nice, relevant explanations in the purports. So my next slides will consist of those purports, okay? And Nabi, make sure, please tell me when to stop so that I can actually leave time for questions, because these purports are really, they're just wonderful.
You got
Srila Prabhupada goes on. In human society all over the world, there are millions and billions of men and women, and almost all of them are less intelligent because they have very little knowledge of the spirit soul. Now, I have to tell you that when I first came to Krishna consciousness, some 30 years ago, I started reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So somehow Krishna gave me, he pushed me at the top of the ladder as far as Vedic literature is concerned. And I was hearing Srila Prabhupada speak like this. And he would say things like less intelligent people or third-class people. And I was very offended. And I would close Srimad Bhagavatam and I would put it aside and say, who do you think he is? So I would have my little argument and rant and rave with him. But what happened to me is like what happened to most people. Give it a day, I would go and pick it up again because I knew he was right. So don't be offended when Srila Prabhupada is making statements like this, because he's got the authority to make these statements and he's absolutely right. He's not saying it from any point of view, ego or something else, no gain, no material gain. He's saying it because it is an absolute fact. So out of all these millions and billions of people, almost all of them are less intelligent because they have very little knowledge of the spirit soul. And that knowledge of the spirit soul, we know how crucial it is because that's how Lord Krishna starts his instruction with Arjuna. He lays that foundation. You need to know the distinction between what the body and the soul, which is permanent, which is temporary, which can be killed and which can't be killed. So in that way, Srila Prabhupada is speaking very nicely, giving, good, although sometimes hurtful explanation of the reality that we're now in. Almost all of them have a wrong conception of life, for they identify themselves with the gross and subtle material bodies, which they are not in fact. And this is exactly how it is. When we don't know about the soul, then I only know about my body. I only know about my connections, my wife, my children, my home, my community, and in that way, my occupation. I only know about those things. And they are my reality. And they're the things that are meaningful to me. Anything beyond that, well, it may give me a nice feeling, but I'm not so connected. So Srila Prabhupada is challenging that. He says almost all of them have a wrong conception of life. Well, if we have just those things and that's our reality, it will be a wrong conception of life. And then we'll act and make decisions based on that. He said they may be situated in different high or low positions in the estimation of human society. But one should know definitely that unless one inquires about his own body, about his own, I can't read the part of it now, but his own, beyond the body and mind.
Self.
Own self, beyond the body and mind, all his activities in human life are a total failure. That is such a strong statement. What does Srila Prabhupada mean? What is he trying to say? A total failure. Well, I'm a big magistrate. Don't you know I run a big company? Don't you know that I've got, £1 million in my bank account? Don't you know I'm feeding so many people over there in this country or that country? I'm running a big charity. How can my total life be a failure? But it is a failure because the material aspect of our lives and all the bodily connections, if there's no realization of the mission of life, which is to actually reconnect, with our spiritual relationship with the Lord, if that is not in the equation, then everything material will finish. It will finish. And then what have you gained? The soul goes into another body, by arrangement. And then you've gone into another body, but what? Just to start again in the cycle of life. So this point about understanding, that the main aspect of human life is to grasp the fact that I must reconnect with the Lord, or else everything is a failure. It's a failure because it will finish, it will disappear, and all the connections, all the local connections, the family, the community, the society, it will all finish. Therefore, out of thousands and thousands of men, one may inquire about the spirit self and thus consult revealed scriptures like Vedanta Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. So we should do that. And Srila Prabhupada's mission, which was so wonderfully achieved, was to make this available. So because it is now available, then we should take advantage of this. Without this transcendental knowledge, we will continue to be confused. So we must take the opportunity. And taking the opportunity, I mean, how many devotees? I certainly know that I've got books on my shelf that I've not read, but I'm getting round to them. But there's so many devotees in our preaching. They will say to you, I've got Bhagavad Gita in my home. You know, my father gave it, my mother gave it to me, some sadhu gave it to me. They've even got signed copies by sadhus, but they haven't touched it. They haven't opened it, which is the sad thing. We need to take it off the shelf and we need to start to read them and get the wisdom and the guidance that's within them, because by great effort they've been made available to us. But in spite of reading and hearing scriptures, unless one is in touch with a realized spiritual master, one cannot actually realize the true nature of the self. And out of thousands and thousands of men, of such men, one may know what Lord Krishna is in fact. In the Chaitanya Chaitamrita Madhya Lila, you know, it is said that Lord Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, prepared the Vedic literature in the incarnation of Srila Vyasadeva for reading by the intelligent class of human society, which is almost forgetful of the genuine relationship with Krishna. Even such an intelligent class may be forgetful of their relationship with the Lord. The whole Bhakti Yoga process is therefore a revival of the lost, relationship. This revival is possible in human society. It's only possible in the human form of life, which is obtained only after evolution of 8,400,000 species of life. Some of the reality that Srila Prabhupada is talking about, because we are so conditioned, we find it hard to accept. But the reality is there. If we do not use this human form of body to actually make spiritual progress in a meaningful way, we will fall off the human platform. And once we do that, we're going to then continue in the cycle. Or better still, if we misuse this human body and opportunity, then we fall again into the cycle of the 8,400,000 types of births that we can get until we get another opportunity to take human birth again. So that responsibility is something that we should grasp. And Srila Prabhupada, you can see how Srila Prabhupada would say things like this, that this Krishna conscious society is meant to save humanity. Because unless this has been taught, humanity does not know the program. We do not know that this is what human life is meant for. So in this way, catching a glimpse of the purpose of life and the process by which we can make this spiritual progress and make this best use of human life is a great privilege. But this is given by the spiritual master. This is given by those who are authorized. And it's a whole other class in actually knowing who the spiritual master is and what he represents. The intelligent class of men, being taking serious note of the opportunity of human society, they are intelligent. So the importance of human life is not always understood. Therefore, manisham, meaning thoughtful, manishanam, meaning thoughtful, is particular here. One must be thoughtful. One must be conscious about what is real and what is not. A manishyanam person like Maharaj Parikshit must therefore take to the lotus feet of the Lord and fully engage himself in devotional service, hearing, chanting, etc. The holy name and pastimes of the Lord, which are all katamrita. Like Maharaj Parikshit, must therefore take to the lotus feet of the Lord and engage himself in devotional service of hearing. This action is especially recommended where one is preparing for death. And is there anybody who's not preparing for death? Is there anybody who's not preparing? Is there anybody who's not going? We may not be preparing, but is there anybody who death is not going to visit? especially in these troubled times, it will visit all of us. So when we are thoughtful, when we are serious, when we are, mindful and careful, then this is what we do. We take to this devotional process. But this preaching, Srila Prabhupada is an acharya, so I'm repeating his words because they have significance for us. They may have impact on whoever is listening, and the impact could be very hard because that's how the acharyas speak, but they're giving the plain reality. So whether you want it softened or you can take it as straight from the shoulder, as the saying goes, it doesn't change the reality. The reality is that life has got a purpose, and the purpose is to surrender to Krishna and to reconnect with him. Now, having said that, I'll stop here and I will take any questions or queries that devotees have. And just so you know, it's Srila Prabhupada's purport, it's not my words. Was there anything, Navi?
Any devotees would like to ask any questions? Yes.
I have a question, Prabhuji.
Yes.
I know you say that the body is transcendental and the soul is permanent, but when death comes, the person is gone. But the ones who are left behind, whatever it is, the attachment happens right from birth, or for your parents, for your, your own children. How can you get away from that attachment just by chanting or thinking of the soul? And how can you stop crying? I mean, like, it's something which does come naturally with death because of the attachment.
Yeah, it's not about not crying, or grieving is not barred. Grieving is allowed because this Vedic philosophy is so wonderful. Everything is known in detail. It's not that you don't grieve. It's not that you're not going to miss that person. It's not that whoever that person is, whether it's friend or family, it's not that you're not going to miss them. They're going to leave a gap in your life because that relationship is there. But it's the understanding. There is such a difference when you know that that person who you've shared intimate pastimes with, that body is now finished. But when you know that that person, their soul has gone on, and especially if you know their soul has gone on to a better destination, that actually helps to balance out the grief of the separation. So it's not that there's no grief. It's just that the satisfaction, if you're thinking, I've lost them and I don't know where they've gone, then the grief is double. But if you've lost them because the body must finish, but you can actually predict, yes, because of their good karmas, because of their good nature, you know that they're going to be getting a good destination. That helps. That knowledge is required. It does soften the grief. It really does. Mataji, if I can give you a practical example of how that works. My younger brother, to me, he's now left the body. And we were always very close because ever since I had responsibility to look after him, and he was always a very difficult person to look after as a younger brother. He was younger to me by 2 years because he was very strong-willed person. So, I had to take a lot of care for him and a lot of challenges. But either way, he reached a stage where he had a marriage breakup, and that marriage breakup affected him very badly. And in that, he started drinking, and his life kind of went down. Well, it got to the stage where, I could see, and he became very bitter. Intellectually, he was a very sharp person. So he became very bitter and not seeing life or people, in a very positive way. And it got to a stage where he spent some time, he became homeless, he spent some time with me. And what I noticed when he was with me was that I became very worried about him, because I thought to myself, and I could see from the point of Shastra, from the point of association with the Guru, if he left this life, if he left this body with that mentality, his destination would not be very good. He was either going to go to the animal world or some very uncomfortable situation, if not hell. And because I was motivated by that, because I knew that his destination was not very good, I prayed for him and I did all kinds of things, and he was able to, Lord arrange it, he was able to spend 6 months with me, and he was able to become vegetarian, within my household anyway. He could eat outside, he could eat inside. He gave up smoking, he started chanting. And then when he came back to London, he used to attend the temple, and we had a mantra meditation class on Fridays, and he used to come and was chanting very nicely. Now, as he was chanting more and more, his mentality changed. And then suddenly, just when he was getting his health back, he was getting everything, he was just about to go back into work, he got cancer. And then he left the body very quickly after that. But I can tell you, although I miss him because of the relationship of taking care of him as a younger sibling and such forth, but I tell you, I was very happy, and more comfortable at the funeral, knowing that his destination is going to be good. Everyone has to leave, but where are they going to go? What mentality, what pious karma do they have? Where are they going to go? Where is it going to take them? So whilst the grieving is there, the separation is obviously going to hurt, but it's when you have an understanding that essence of the person, their consciousness, their soul, they've gone on. And where they're going is a nice place. That gives comfort, Mataji. Does that help?
Yes, yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much. It's helped a lot.
Actually, can I just say a few words? Thank you for that question, Anju. It's really good. Because questions like that, many people will have in their mind. So when you express it, actually you're asking on behalf of many. So in the scriptures, there is an example which is very instructive. In the Bhagavatam, there's a king called Chitraketu. He had many wives, but he didn't have any children. So he was always lamenting. One day a sage came to him and he saw the condition of the king, and he asked him, what is the problem? So the king said, this is the problem, no children. So the sage said, okay, I'll bless you with a son, but he will be the cause of great happiness and also great unhappiness. So the king accepted. He didn't care about the unhappiness, but he said the happiness was good. So in time, the eldest queen gave him the son, and the other queens became very jealous because they were very happy before, but now the eldest queen was the main queen, and the attention was given to her and the son by the king. They became jealous. They poisoned the son. They killed the son. Now, of course, everybody was in grief and lamentation. The sage came back with Narad Muni, and they asked the king, what's the matter? What's happened? So the king explained. And Narad Muni said to the dead body, oh, young boy, why did you leave your parents so soon before your time? So then the soul, this is the power of the sages, the soul went back into the body of the young boy, and he woke up, rose, and he answered the question. He asked, which mother and father are you talking about? Because Narada asked, why did you leave your parents so early? And he asked, which parents are you talking about? I've had millions of parents in the past, and I don't know which parent you're talking about. So this pastime actually pacified the mind of Chitraketu, and he became one of the greatest devotees of the Lord. So This is an example from scripture that actually we had many parents in the past. So, and we will have many parents in the future as well. It's not that it makes us callous and neglect our duties. No, but we see our duties as duties. We can do them lovingly as well. But if we have strong attachment, we should understand that's going to always keep us in this world. And in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, the real form of this tree, this material world, cannot be perceived in this world, in this here. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, where its foundation is. But, Krishna says, with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything begins and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial.
Okay.
So we all be in different stages of life, but we should understand that if we remain attached to anything in this world, we remain here. So the idea of spiritual knowledge, like Krishna says at the end of 4th chapter, is with this sword of knowledge, cut your ties to this material world. It doesn't mean we can become callous and uncaring. No, devotees are more caring than anybody. But there's a sense of detachment that actually everything belongs to the Lord, everything is the Lord's, I am the Lord's, and I am simply here as caretaker on behalf of the Lord. Whatever he wants, it'll happen.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Anju?
Yes, a lot, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. It helps a lot.
How did you, sorry, as a matter of interest, how did you find out? It's the first time you joined us, right?
Yes, that's right. Indrani Mataji introduced me to this forum.
Oh, Indulekha, you mean?
No,
Hare Krishna, Nabi Prabhu is in Indulekha here. I introduced Anjali and Anil also. They are both from Canada here, so they were so happy about listening Anand Vijay Prabhu's class. So I told them they're my god brothers, so they want to join. So that I gave them the link. And actually, Anjali listened up to 1:30 in the morning. Anand Vijay Prabhu class from yesterday, so she was amazed.
Thank you.
So we have a little group here.
Okay.
So non-devotees, I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita, and so they are so enthusiastic.
Well
So
done,
Well
well
done.
done, Indulekha. Thank you very much.
That's very inspiring, actually. So
Yeah,
thank
very
you.
inspiring. Yeah.
Can I
Yes, thank
add
you.
something else? As Nabi was speaking very nicely, it was just my mind just remembered something that I would sometimes say in class. I would sometimes help devotees, and that is that because it's not about, as you said very nicely, it's not about being callous or not actually enjoying ourselves, because we have material desires, and the Lord doesn't actually stop us from those material desires, because that's why we have the facilities we have, because of our pious deeds, but because we have material desires that we want to have fulfilled. So it gives us the opportunity to fulfill it. But it's been very informed and knowledgeable to know that I have to run a twin track. I have to run my material desires. I have to run that along with my spiritual life. And I have to run the two things side by side. The mistake that most people make, and especially most grihastas make, is that they're only running their material life. They're not running their spiritual life. You have to run the things side by side, knowing that at some stage my material life will finish, my spiritual life will go on. So that is really important. And I tell you with clear, I haven't got the evidence from Shastra, but we know there's a place called Suryalok, there's a place called Chandralok, and these places are opulent beyond our imagination. There's no place in the material world that is as beautiful as those places. And the bodies that the devotees there have, and the wealth and luxury. So the Lord is not against wealth and comfort. But the devotees, the devtas, They're in the mode of goodness. They're worshiping the Lord. So we have to understand that no one, Krishna consciousness is not opposed to comfortable life or wealth. No, it's not against that. Some religion preach against that. At a certain stage of your advancement, you will see that that's not even required. But until you get there, especially if you're in Grihastha life, no one needs to have any dilemma about having a nice house, a nice car, a nice home. The main thing you have to do with that is to actually be surrendered to Krishna and run and develop and maintain your spiritual life. If you can do that, you've caught the mission of human life, you've caught the purpose, and Srila Prabhupada is very expertly preaching how this can be done. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very clear about how this can be done. Stay in your position and make spiritual progress by being surrendered to the Lord in your position. Take up spiritual life in your position. So I'll stop there. Any more questions for anyone? Doesn't matter how simple you think the question may be, we will clarify whatever we can for you.
Today is Ekadashi, Prabhu. So if you've come to a reasonable stop,
I've come to a stop.
Okay, so you can carry on with the same subject next week, isn't it?
Yes, please. I'd like to.
Yeah, no, that's good. And we could just give a summary of the Ekadashi for this month. Okay. So let me just get that up. So this month, of course, is Purushottam Mas, and very, very important month for bhakti. And we are very fortunate that we are able to actually get quite engaged in Krishna consciousness, especially through online channels like this Zoom. And the Ekadashis in this month are regarded to be very important. They only come every 3 years or so. So to observe these Ekadashis a little bit more carefully is recommended. So Jayanti will take you through the summary.
Okay, so it's quite a long katha, so I'll just summarize it because of time. So today is Padmini Ekadashi. So Lord Brahma described the glories of this Ekadashi to Narad Muni. So on this Ekadashi, one should worship the Lord, chant his holy names and glories, and not indulge in useless talks. So this katha was narrated by Pulatsya Muni to Narad Muni. And the katha is as such. There's a personality called Kritavir Arjuna, who once captured Ravan and held him prisoner. So you would think, Ravan is such a powerful person, so how come he was captured and held prisoner? So the reason for this is in Treta Yuga, there was a king named Kritavirya who had no suitable sons. He had 1,000 wives, but no suitable sons to carry on with the kingdom after he left. So the king decided to undergo austerities in the forest, accompanied by one of his wives named Padmini. They went to the summit of Mandara mountain and they performed austerities for 10,000 years. As the king became very thin after 10,000 years, Padmini asked Mother Ansuya, who was in a nearby ashram, what vow she could do to please the Lord to get a son, as her husband had not been successful in his austerities. So Mother Ansuya advised the queen that she should observe 2 Ekadashis during the Purushottam month to please the Lord, who will award her with a son. So the queen observed the Ekadashi, and Lord Keshav came riding on Garud and came before the queen and ordered her to ask for a benediction. The queen offered prayers to Lord Keshav and then requested the Lord to bless her with a son. So the Lord said that he was pleased with the queen and will fulfill the desire of the king. The Lord went before the king and told him about the queen's observance of Ekadashi and to ask for benediction. The king asked for a son who would be powerful and victorious, not to be defeated by demigods, humans, serpents, or demons. The Lord granted the benediction and disappeared. And so the king and queen went back to the kingdom. And in due course of time, the queen gave birth to a son, and they called him Kritavir Arjuna. So because of this boon, that's the reason why he was so powerful, and that is why he was able to defeat Ravan and held him prisoner. So whoever observes this Ekadashi will certainly go to the abode of Lord Hari. And also one who hears or reads the glories of this Ekadashi obtains a great amount of piety. Padmini Ekadashi ki.
Yeah.
Vijay.
Fantastic. So I was very gratified yesterday because actually, in one sense, we couldn't do the Nashinga coverage, which was a shame, but I was really happy that one devotee, his name is Ritesh, he said to me, "Hey, we didn't do the Nashinga coverage." And I said, "Well, we ran out of time." So he said, "Okay, can we do it in the children's Sangha?" He was so enthusiastic. I was thinking,
Right.
brilliant, because this is exactly what, we want to sort of instill in people, become enthusiastic for hearing these wonderful prayers and kavachis. So today we luckily have this opportunity Karuna Bandar will very kindly lead the way of chanting the wonderful kavach. Let me just dig it out. Oh, stop recording. One sec. And Pitambar, if you can do the Nashinga prayers, that'll be good. Okay, so. Find